I got this old 10-inch miter saw from a yard sale today for 20 bucks. I think they were getting rid of it because even though it still works, the mechanism to raise and lower the acrylic blade guard doesn't work anymore. And I think I found the reason why. It's because this metal disc right here engages with this arm that attaches at the back of the saw, and it engages with that pin right there, and that is connected to the acrylic blade guard, which rotates and makes it raise and lower when you move the saw up and down. But it looks like it's because a few of these little plastic notches in the acrylic, which are supposed to engage with these cutouts here on the metal disc, the three of them are broken off, so that's probably the reason why. Also, I noticed that the throat plate has a nice big chunk out of it here, so it might be worth trying to make some sort of like a zero clearance insert that you would do as on a table saw, so that might be worth a try. You can see it works now because I realigned these plastic nubs with the cutouts where they were supposed to be. So it works for the time being, but it's obvious that it doesn't take a whole lot to knock them out of position. Probably do it by just, there we go. It doesn't take a whole lot. So you can see it, there's the notch, there's the cutout. Yeah, so now that it's slipped off like that, it's not working. And here's where they were broken off, right here. So quite a bit of material missing there. Okay, so here's the guard with the three broken off plastic notches there. And here's the metal disc that engages it. What I have is a piece of scrap steel that I think should work pretty nicely. I thought it would be pretty easy to just, instead of having those plastic nubs right there, just put a little screw into each one and have that stand in for the notches that were there, and that would engage that little metal disc pretty nicely. But I think there's a lot of leverage there just because of the length of this whole thing, and it wouldn't take much to accidentally bump one end of it and then break this old acrylic here. So I think what might be smarter is to transfer that load that would be right there a little bit farther out on this lever, which I think would be less likely to break the acrylic. So I think what I could do is possibly use this piece of metal and cut out a piece about this shape here, with the goal of attaching it to the acrylic with some countersunk screws around here and really spread that load out. And then just make 3 notches at the edge of it where it would butt up against this disc, and just have 3 notches in the metal stick out and engage that disc right there. That's my plan. Okay, you can only get so precise with an angle grinder, but at least it's in the neighborhood now. Okay, so I can see the places where the notches are supposed to be a lot more clearly when I'm cutting or grinding. I think what I'll do is just go over this with a quick coat of white spray paint. You'll see why in a second. It'll make it a lot easier for me, that's for sure, to cut this out a little bit more precisely. There we go. That should make it a little easier. Here's what I have so far. That's with a bunch of angle grinder and grinding wheel use. Got it somewhat close, so I could probably clean that up with the Dremel a bit, make it fit pretty nicely into here. We'll see how that goes. Doesn't look the prettiest, but it engages these notches, and that should work. Okay, so here's the piece. I threaded 4 holes, 1032 thread, and I found 4 1032 screws. So what I'll do is just mount this on here like that and secure it from the back with this 4 screws. Okay, so that worked pretty well. Here's the guard with the metal piece put on, and I drilled and tapped 4 1032 screw holes in the piece of metal, and I drilled 4 I think it was 1/4-inch holes, just large enough for the screw to pass through and have a little bit of play anyway. The size really isn't important. Holes in the acrylic, and it fits on there really nicely. And here's that original metal disc, which when you put it back in its place, it engages those 3 nude metal teeth really nicely. It is going nowhere. Okay, so slight change of plans. The screws that I originally put in with the washers, the heads stand a little bit too high this way and interfere with a piece that's on the saw. I just tried it on the saw, and it makes it so that the blade can't, or the blade guard can't rotate freely. So instead of using these nice washers to spread out the force of the screw head, instead I'll have to use some countersunk screws that I had. So here's 2 of them. You can see they sit down much lower than the flathead screws or panhead screws. So That's fine. I'll change all 4 of those out. Okay, so here is the old throat plate that obviously has seen better days. It's got a couple big chunks out of it and some cracks. It's kind of coming apart here. But I found 2 pieces of flat PVC. I don't remember what from, but they're 1/8 of an inch thick, and this is 1/4 inch thick. So I think I can attach these 2 together and just trace out the old throat plate on this and cut out a new one. See how it works. Okay, so here is the old insert and the new insert. Came out pretty nicely. That's what it looked like. And here's the new one. So looks pretty good. I'll just run the saw for a second to put a new kerf in it, and it should be good to go. Okay, so I just discovered something else that's broken on this saw. The lever that you use to loosen the bevel adjustment so you can make cuts with the saw like that, I discovered is broken when I went to make a beveled cut through that new throat plate. I made the straight up and down one, but when I was trying to make the beveled cut, I realized I couldn't set the bevel. The reason is because it's got this plastic handle and this metal slip collar that were previously one piece, but it looks like they've broken and separated. But this is a piece that you can slide over a big metal nut on the back of the saw and tighten or loosen and then slide it off. But it looks like the torque of turning that over the years has broken it apart. So I think what I'll try to do is drill into there, maybe 2 or 3 screws or 2 or 3 holes, and then take a very small screw and tap the hole and insert that, and then get in there with a Dremel and cut it off. Hopefully that'll be a permanent repair. Okay, so I drilled and tapped 3 632 holes through both pieces, and it seems like it worked pretty well. I just have to get in there with a Dremel or something and cut off these screws flush, and it seems to be really, really secure, so that should work. Okay, that took a little bit of doing, but I don't know if you can see, but I got 3 screws down in there to secure this piece to the handle, and it's pretty darn tight, so I don't think it's going to come off. But I just drove 3 drilled and tapped, and then drove 3 632 screws in there, and then had the unusual situation where I actually wanted my Dremel cutoff wheel to be small and worn out, so I had to get a new one and wear it out a little bit so it was small enough to get down into there, and then cut off the heads and try to cut them as flush as I can so that this thing will still function kind of as a big nut driver. So we'll see how that works. Okay, that works. Okay, and done. The throat plate is working just like new now, and it's got a nice, very small clearance. The blade guard is working like new again, and it's probably a lot sturdier with this metal reinforcement than it was originally, so that's good. And of course the last thing, the locking lever for the bevel adjustment is fixed now, so back to normal. Works like it should.